I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. And welcome to JUCK on Bucks. Appreciate you so much for joining me. On a Tuesday, I was watching a couple guys rank Big Ten defensive lines yesterday. One guy had Ohio State ranked 5th. The other guy had them outside the top 5, which they only went to 5. So they could have been 7 or 8. Who knows? But it really irritated me at first. And then I stopped and, all right, check yourself. Let's really look through this. We're talking Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, SC. I got a hard time processing in my brain hearing Ohio State ranked 5th in anything in the Big Ten because I'm still adapting to the conference, getting bigger, adding in, a competitor every year in Oregon, and obviously USC, who's currently rebuilding their roster through the portal, through recruiting, which boy, oh boy, USC fans not happy that I shed some light on that story written by their own beat writer that Mark Bowman is getting an $8 to $10 million contract for the 3 years. They're upset with me. The most recent fan base to realize that JUCK rhymes with a couple of words that are very unflattering. How very thoughtful of you, Trojan fans. Congratulations on your creativity. Trojan fans with a very big ego right now. This bought recruiting class has got them feeling quite swole on themselves. But when we talk about the Buckeye defensive line, certainly there are no starters returning, and it's difficult to project forward and be super high on them in the Big Ten. As I've said 100 times, I am really high on Edric Houston, and I think Caden McDonald has shown us all that he can be a difference maker. We'll see what kind of consistency he can be a difference maker in. Bo Atkinson was a little inconsistent, but last year, towards the end of the year, was really good. And, you get the feeling maybe this is a guy who, kind of like Jack Sawyer towards the back end of his junior year, started to really get it and break through. Kenyatta Jackson also looking like he's reaching his peak. The peak that maybe some of us thought he might reach as a little bit of a younger player, but didn't have a ton of opportunity. But he looks like a grown man now. It's just a different build, a different attitude. Caden Curry, an extremely disruptive playmaker, plays with his hair on fire. And it just got me thinking about Matt Patricia and how he plans on deploying this defense. Because when he first came in, and I feel like, we always kind of hear this line, like, we're not going to change much of anything. He's just kind of coming in, teach me Jim Knowles' defense. Okay, this is what he does. All right, this is what we'll run. And you kind of get the feeling, all right, that feels comfortable. That's what it's going to be. You had a good defense. But they also talked about playing to the strength of their personnel. When we look at this defense, the defensive line is not as good as it was last year. There's no question about that. You don't have Jordan Hancock. He was kind of a weapon that allowed you to do a lot of different things. So you drop off at nickel, drop off a little at defensive line. Linebacker feels like you've got more playable depth ready to go. If everything they're saying about Peyton Pierce is true, you got 3 kind of starters, though I feel like you kind of had that last year too. It's just a really strong looking linebacker room right now. And you've got a couple of guys that can do a lot of different things in CJ Hicks and Arvell Reese. Obviously, Bo Atkinson played a lot of the year last year standing up. We know Kenyatta can play like that. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm thinking that this defense as a whole is going to look just so different. And then I was listening to these girls on this SEC podcast talk about the Ohio State-Texas game. And I started thinking about the Ohio State-Texas. They weren't talking about the game. They were talking about the game time, which they were totally just being total homers and defending Texas in the time. And
theoretically, if they moved the game to Sunday night at 8 p.m., they're not done till what, 10, 11? And then afterwards, are they traveling back to Texas that night on a jet, or are they staying the night and missing Monday classes? Like, we also are forgetting that these guys are students. Like, they go to class, and I don't see why anyone would even push for a Sunday night game time. And they wanted that primetime spot for reasons that I just, like, we're not the NFL.
hurts Texas in a way to move it to a night game because one, again, like you said, they have to travel back home. Then they go to classes all week, plus conditioning and everything, getting ready for their game in Texas that week. And I mean, a night atmosphere is just more electric and a new.
But it got me thinking about the game. And normally you would come into a game, all right, Ohio State replacing both coordinators. They're going to be behind the 8 ball because of that. But man, Sark has nothing to go on here, planning his offensive attack against a defense. He has no clue what this defense is going to look like. No clue at all. That's a big advantage for the Buckeyes right there. When you've got a very experienced guy calling a defense and he's got no idea what he's going to do. So pretty interesting right there. Some of the JUCK on Bucks big men that were in the mock class that I made up the other day, couple of tidbits on them, starting with Cam Brickle, who was in town over the weekend. Cam Brickle, 6'2", 300, top 400-ish player in the country, man in the middle, the big dude, the one tech, a true one tech. And he was in my dream class, actually. And he doesn't fit the rest of the guys that were in the dream class as far as rankings. But of the 3 kind of true one techs that the Buckeyes are in on, he's the lowest ranked one by the services. I think they got it wrong. Emmanuel Ruffing out of Alabama, pretty good. Preston Carey out of IMG, really good at eating up a double team. Neither of those players have the upside that I think Brickle has. Just a really twitchy dude, a little faster. I think the Buckeyes agree, and I think that he's reciprocating that love. Feels like he's a priority. Spent a lot of time over his official watching film with Larry Johnson. Really likes the way he coaches. He said something of note that we really didn't know before, but he said that Ryan Day told him he's only taken 2 tackles in the class. Now, in my version of the dream class, I had PJ Dean and Deuce Geralds, and then Cam Brickle was your one tech after you lost Jameer Perez as an option for that. Obviously, Ohio State not going to say no to PJ Deans or Deuce Geralds, regardless if somebody is committed before then. But I thought it was pretty interesting that Ryan Day said that to him. We'll see if he ends up sticking to that. As for his recruitment, Florida State, Maryland, Penn State, all coming up. Then we've got Kari Wilder from Junipero Serra. Now, Kari, Buckeyes get in on him, offer him, and he immediately schedules a visit. He already had one scheduled to Washington, UCLA, and Notre Dame. Steve Wiltfong over at On3 did a piece on Monday regarding those official visits that Ohio State had. And he said the Buckeyes are all in on Kari Wilder, and he would not have bet against the Buckeyes there. So I think that we were spot on, and it looks like Kari Wilder trending in the right direction for Ohio State. They really like him. I was really happy to hear that because it just confirms that what I was seeing was spot on. Like, this is a dude here right now. And in the Bucks, looks like he just might end up in the class, which makes me very happy. Now, there was a guy who was not on my pre-visit dream class. I'm sorry, not on my pre-visit mock class, but was on the dream class, Luke Waffle. Obviously, we've talked a ton about Luke Waffle. And after an official visit, everybody feels a high, right? Everything's great. Well, that was his first one. He's got to go do the rest of them. He's got to go do Texas and USC and Penn State. He already has done Florida, but they seem like kind of a distant fifth. I wasn't feeling great about Luke Waffle. I wasn't feeling great about it, but I'm feeling a little better, and not so much because of what Luke Waffle said after the visit. Luke's really shy. His dad does the talking for him in a lot of cases, and he did with Steve Wiltfong on Monday. But more because it feels like the necessity at the position and the involvement of the boss. And the boss was heavily involved over the weekend. Luke's dad said that the weekend was perfect. For me, it was several things, but getting to know Coach Day was truly a highlight. His program is just amazing. His passion for Ohio State and its traditions radiates every time he speaks. Now, this is a guy whose oldest son committed to Michigan. Now he plays at Penn State. This is his first go-round at the cream of the crop of the Big Ten, and it certainly sounds like he hit it off with Coach Day. Would Luke Waffle go to Ohio State with his brother at Penn State? Do a three top of the Big Ten kind of rotation between the two brothers? I could definitely see it happening. Luke Waffle's dad continued, also meeting Matt Patricia, a guy who's done it at the highest level for a long time, really down to earth and easy to speak with. Really amazing listening to him talk defense. To be able to meet with Coach Johnson several times was just really special. It was great to hear in specific detail his plans and goals for Luke. His words carry so much weight. And that's the thing with Larry, man. The words carry a ton of weight with people. We can't discount that. For all the things about Larry's style that are maddening at times, haven't adapted, that is true. You can't deny that. All the parents say that. All the kids say that. But I just started to kind of take a different tone on this one. And I'm starting to feel like, yeah, I think I was wrong for discounting this. And the necessity, the fact that Ryan Day is so involved, this one's starting to feel like I might have to change that up for my post-visit mock class. I'm feeling much better about him. Now, we do have an announcement coming up. Ohio State former lean Micah Champ-Smith for like a year and a half, Vero Beach, TJ Alford's teammate, will be making his announcement Friday on Instagram, and this normally would have been one that we would go live for. Choosing between 6 schools, Alabama, Illinois, Ohio State, South Carolina, Tennessee, and UCLA. So far, he made an official to Illinois, then he made his second official to UCLA and shut it down. So we all know what's happened here. He is committing to UCLA on Friday, will not be taking any more of his official visits. Says it's about relationships and development, not just on the field, but off the field as a man. Because if we know one thing about Deshaun Foster's UCLA, it's that they've been known to develop offensive linemen and young men on and off the field. In the 1 year plus a couple of months that he's been there. I still can't believe that, man. I can't believe that. Braylon Womack, 5-star number 1 safety in the country, and his parents went to Florida for their official visit over the weekend at Florida. You heard the normal, yeah, things went good. Same with Carter Meadows, who went down to South Carolina. Now, somebody asked me the other day if Braylon Womack went to one of the other 4 schools in his Final Four, who do I think would be most plausible? I find these 3 to be so similar in Texas A&M, Florida, and Auburn, and the fact that they're all kind of like mid-tier SEC teams that have talented rosters that will spend stupid money for somebody and probably will all make stupid offers to them. It's really hard to parse because they're kind of like the exact same program, aren't they? Like they just feel exactly the same to me. So I'll take a stab and say Florida. I will say Florida, even though his sister's at Auburn. I'll say Florida because it feels like Billy Napier has a little knack for making some things happen every now and again, though Hugh Freeze has been known to do it as well. Last cycle, he did it a couple times. But I'll say Florida. All in all, I've still got Braylon Womack as a Buckeye. He'll take his final visit at Ohio State. And if you didn't make a big jump on Ohio State now after your official visit, you're not going to. But when it comes to South Carolina and Carter Meadows, I think they're a real threat for Carter Meadows, even though the rest of his visits are in the Big Ten with Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. And if he does not go to Ohio State, I hope he goes to South Carolina. Then you've got Mansfield Lexington High School tight end Braden Fogel, who will be visiting now Notre Dame, Georgia, LSU, and Penn State. And this is a 4-star top 200 player out of Ohio, 6'3", 225, a great athlete. Never got an Ohio State offer, and I don't quite know why. It doesn't make much sense. Keenan Bailey, I guess it would have made sense if he landed Mark Bowman, but he cost too much. And it would still make sense if he lands Max Sutter, who was in over the weekend. Now, Max Sutter is the number 6 tight end in the country. He said the environment was electric. I love Coach Key, and there is no other coach that has proven to me they will develop me and pour everything into me anytime as much as Coach Key. And doesn't that just sound like him? Like that's what he sells these guys on. Like, and he means it. He's just got it going on right now. And he's got it going on with Max Sutter. As we know, the kid from Illinois was in town over the weekend. And it certainly sounds like the Buckeyes made some real positive movement. It seemed like it was all Alabama up until that point. And he got a lot of questions answered. And he really feels like Keenan Bailey, like, look, this is a guy who's going to take care of me, get to know him. You know, he's good to go. Keenan did everything he could here. And Max Sutter got maybe a little bit of an eye-opening to the Buckeyes. Some people think the Buckeyes have pulled it square with Alabama, but pulling square before his Alabama official visit, not going to be quite good enough, I don't think. They'll still need to do quite a bit of work, but there is a chance. He hung out with Corbin Fordham all weekend, Nate Roberts, a couple other tight ends. So sounds like they had a really good time. His dad seemed to like it. Jake Krull, the 5-star out of IMG, said, Ohio State has been very high on my board. Their consistency of putting defensive linemen in the NFL has always stood out to me. He's got burst. He's got some twitch for sure, but he is linebacker size playing defensive end. And based on a picture that we saw of him with Ryan Day over the weekend, like, I think I was right with my original concern. This dude is not 6'3". He's probably barely 6'2", 220. So he's got elite technique, which means his ceiling isn't particularly high. You can't add a ton onto it because he's already developed it. And not only do I think Ohio State would obviously take Luke Waffle and Carter Meadows, who are, you know, both ranked slightly below him, before him, I think Landon Barnes is higher on the board. I think Jackson Ford is higher on their board. It just doesn't feel like there's anything going on here to me. I just don't feel it. So, all right. So recently, Ohio State cornerback recruit Jordan Thomas's agent came out and talked to 24/7 in kind of a behind the scenes recruitment of Jordan Thomas from an agent's perspective. And we talked earlier this recruiting season about Jermaine Kinsler. Jermaine Kinsler was Quincy Porter and Jordan Thomas's teammate at Bergen Catholic, huge defensive tackle. Ohio State was recruiting him. It looked like it was moving places. And then out of nowhere, he commits to Texas A&M. Now, Texas A&M has been a thorn in the side of the Buckeyes recently. Can't remember Ohio State and Texas A&M crossing paths a lot on the trail like we've seen this year. But it turns out that Jordan Thomas's agent, Latish Kinsler, is Jermaine Kinsler's uncle. So I never would have thought, had I known that prior, that the guy that orchestrated the Jermaine Kinsler deal to Texas A&M out of nowhere would have been the same guy orchestrating Jordan Thomas to Ohio State. And I think it speaks volumes that Jordan Thomas wanted to come to Ohio State, and then it happened, because I have no doubt that the Jermaine Kinsler one was all right, we got a sweetheart deal, let's go take this deal. And the Jordan Thomas one didn't work out that way. Totally different. But Jordan Thomas said having Latish allows him to focus on the important stuff. He can focus on the financial stuff. Latish played college football, had a cup of coffee in the NFL. And then the article says he spent a decade in the agent world negotiating contracts when his playing career was over. Saying the agent world, I don't know if they're saying he was an agent or if he worked with an agent, but he got out of that business and then jumped back in when NIL started and started his own company, Football Lifestyle Sports Agency. And he concentrates on seeking out high school kids with potential before they kind of blow up on the scene. Jordan Thomas and many others, he negotiates their deals. He sets up their official visits, their training, does research on programs, etc. And he's been doing this since the beginning of NIL. And he was talking about, in the very beginning, everybody was just throwing numbers against the wall and seeing what would stick. But now that it's been around a little while, you're getting kind of a baseline. But one component that I found really interesting, he mentioned the value of that athlete to that particular industry, that particular university. So what is their value per the rankings? What do the rankings say? And remember, I talked about Brady Edmonds dropping so much in the rankings, that these rankings now have real tangible value to them. Like this is one of the things that they are using as negotiating points. And Brady dropping from the top 2 quarterback outside the top 10, it's not going to affect Brady or Ohio State and Brady, because that's just a different deal. But it could certainly affect somebody else. And they have value to him now. And that's true. And he said it. So he says that, but then he said, in this instance, Jordan Thomas, he's not the number 1 cornerback in the country, but many programs said to him, you are the top cornerback target on our board, including Ohio State. which gives him more financial bargaining power, right? Now, this is something that schools used to say to pretty much every player they committed behind closed doors. Like, you're our number one defensive end. All right, next guy, you're our number one defensive end target. Got to be a little more careful now with who you choose to say that to, if it means you're going to have to pay like that. But Kinsler went on. He said, not just were people telling Jordan Thomas he was the number one corner in their class, but their number one defensive target all in all. Now, I believe Ohio State did tell him that. I believe he was that high, maybe not that high, but one of their top 3 guys throughout this cycle at corner. They loved him. And I think it was true. And I thought it in the beginning that the way they were pursuing him versus Albert Hill, they viewed him as a higher on their board than they did Albert Hill. And, that's the way it worked out. So good for them. And as far as Ohio State's evaluations, they've not proven us wrong or any reason to doubt them so far at corner on their evaluations. So I'm not going to doubt them on this one either, though, obviously I wanted my hometown kid at Ohio State. But he'll be at USC with those wonderful fans out there. All 60,000 of them that come to the games every Saturday. Latif said when the negotiations were getting towards the end with Ohio State, some of the language in the final compensation were being debated, and he said sometimes it gets pretty intense. You want to make sure the financial component are done as well as the academic component, but we don't talk money till the final stage. Now, this is interesting. He says we have some schools that were in kind of the same range. Now it's my job to have these discussions from the school we picked out. There are other schools that would have paid a tremendous amount more. So Ohio State has, we've heard this. They're not going to talk about the finances until the very end. And you assume they've got a blueprint laid out for most of the guys they recruit. And then there are probably some special circumstances for other guys. And, we know the guys that are at the top of the board, the guys that they're going to go, okay, we're going all in on this max type of deal. Things probably operate in a little bit of a different fashion with guys at that end of things. Because let's be honest, if you're one of those guys and you are going to command top dollar, before you really go all the way down that road, you're not going to waste your time if somebody's going to, in your eyes, lowball you and offer you a 25% of what everybody else is. That's just not going to work. So maybe you might want to nix them off the list right off the rip. But for your normal guy, they're really not talking money until the very end of this thing. Like, you're telling them, I want to be a Buckeye. All right, let's talk about money. I think that's pretty cool. Number one, to be able to do that, you've got to be, there are some programs that have to lead with that to get that recruit interested in the first place, right? So to be able to be in that position shows who you are, right? You're a strong program to even be able to be in that position. But being able to get so many of these deals done, when we hear these stories that they can wait until the very end to have that discussion, it's pretty damn impressive. Pretty damn impressive. But Ohio State, Georgia do it in a similar way like that. So all in all, with the NIL, Ohio State navigated this period, which may change soon, right? This all may change when it comes to recruits based on the clearinghouse. We may not be seeing deals like that Mark Bowman deal anymore. Like, you're not going to see somebody pay $3 million of their $13 million budget to a tight end. That will never happen again if the clearinghouse stuff really works the way it's supposed to. But some people think that's going to get blown to shreds in court immediately. At any rate, it's going to be really interesting to see how this is going to change. If it doesn't, Ohio State has really learned how to navigate it well. They've done a pretty tremendous job with it without really going out of pocket with these stupid big deals to freshmen. Because that's how, when you look at the retention on the Ohio State roster, they've done a great job with that. One of the things I think has contributed to that is there aren't any cancerous issues in the clubhouse. You're not bringing in guys that are making more than your starters. And that's happening in a lot of schools. They get desperate. They got to not go pay a recruit more than one of their starters is making. It's not working. That guy is quick to hit the bricks. So Buckeyes have done such a tremendous job with that. Now, I wanted to get into a couple of NIL confidential stories today. These are always some of my favorites. So On 3, we'll go and talk to the Mark Pantoni of several different schools, ask him a couple of questions about what people are up to, what they're asking for with NIL, where the schools are standing on NIL, and a couple of interesting tidbits from these guys. So one says, we're involved with multiple quarterbacks, an NFL collective, an NIL collective guy told On3. I'm not Italian. I'm not a talent. We're involved with multiple quarterbacks, an NIL collective agent told On3. I'm not a talent evaluator, but the one who I think is the least talented just sent over his demand list. It's not even worth entertaining. He wants $1.5 million a year in year one, and this kid needs 2 years before he can even play. He wants travel to and from games, travel back home from campus, then back from home to campus. The asks are crazier than ever, and I don't know how to make good on them. One Big Ten source said, this school is done trying to provide amenities such as private travel to games, keys to a luxury vehicle. They're expecting some tough conversations in the month of June. We are paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars, the source said. Do what you want with it. We're not adding in any more. And that just kind of goes to these street agents, right? Like you can tell by the asks how much these people know about, like how versed they are in this world, right? Like, why are you asking for a car instead of just asking for the money value of the car? Like, I don't get it. You realize the car's coming off the dollars that they're paying you. No, they don't realize that. At any rate, another guy says, we will not be paying recruits crazy numbers until they start playing. We would personally rather go into the portal and get someone who's had a season under their belt and pay them. Developing guys, it's going to be a lot more difficult if they want big money. We've also got people asking for private security, red carpet treatment, people wanting their families on chartered flights to home games and to away games, car service for the entire family to and from games and around town. I'm imagining that's a local guy. So the local guy is seeing, all right, well, you're paying these guys, these people to come in from out of town, right? Their families get to come in. I'm local, so I want car service for my family around town, both before and after the game. It's great. I love this stuff, man. These stories are always so great. But yeah, the street agent deal, and I've seen a couple of them. When you see even the Ohio State kids, they'll tweet a picture of their agent or tag their agent, and it's always like, the dude's not. I'm like, the way he's dressed and stuff. It's like, all right, man, come on. This is not. This is like Urban used to call your second uncle. You know what I mean? Like these guys are now the dudes running the deals for some of these kids, and it's like, all right, whatever, man. But at least Jordan Thomas's kid had some experience. Guy had some experience with the actual business, and you could tell that from the way he talked. But the 4422113, the 442211, the 442211, the 511, the 59, all being discussed this week. What is the playoff format going to be? When are we going to find out? The answer, according to Greg Sankey, we're going to be in the fall playing games before we know what the postseason is going to look like in 2026, which is amazing to me. Less than a year away. We're not even going to know. All right, guys, that'll do me for today. I appreciate you so much. Have a great night. I'll talk to you tomorrow. JUCK out.